Miami is still trying to move Jimmy Butler, but the challenges continue to build on getting it done. We'll let you know the latest reporting on today's episode of Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat, whether you're tuning in on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. I'm Wes Goldberg here with David Ramil. Both of us are credentialed Heat media members who cover this team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Big show for you today. We have a fake trade idea that could solve everybody's problem, and we take a look ahead at a chance for the Heat to make a push in the East. But first, another day, another report about Jimmy Butler. We've got something from Sam Amick. We got something from Kevin O'Connor. We'll start with KOC reporting that Steph Curry and Steve Kerr are concerned about Jimmy Butler's potential fit in the Warriors locker room, and that might be the holdup for the Warriors seriously pursuing a Jimmy Butler trade before next week's deadline. It sounds like the Warriors might be waiting on Steph and Steve Kerr to sign off on a deal before moving forward with an offer. What do you think about this, David?
I think it's interesting. Honestly, I feel like you're kind of asking the wrong person. Like, you've been in that locker room. You know what the culture is. You know what the mood in that locker room is. And despite having covered the team during one of their slumps during this dynastic era of theirs, like, that was still a mainstay of that team. That kind of background mood, the way things operate. And Steph and Kerr and Draymond are the culture carriers, right? Those are the ones that kind of are the bellwethers for this team in terms of how to measure what that group is like or feeling or what their interests are, et cetera. Clay, never quite that. Am I mistaken in assuming that's the case?
Clay was always around, kind of as comedic relief.
He was there.
Yeah.
He was there. But it's Draymond, Steph, and Kerr, right?
Yeah, and really it's Steve Kerr. Bob Myers was a big factor in that also when he was there.
Right.
And it's Steph, right? And I would describe the Warriors culture as very kumbaya, very looking for joy, very of the Phil Jackson, of that kind of era. And so
That ain't Jimmy.
That ain't Jimmy, right? But you could say the same thing about Draymond Green. And he finds a way to fit in. Now, can they handle two mercurial type of personalities and Draymond and Jimmy Butler? Like, that's a little bit tougher because now you kind of have you're doubling up.
Yeah. With Dre, though, it's like that's the team that drafted him.
Right.
We've talked about this before. There's a kind of ownership that's built in there. It's like I've been here. I've put in the time. I was here with David Lee was starting and over me, and we weren't going anywhere. And with Mark Jackson as the head coach, I've been through all this.
And the biggest difference between Draymond and Jimmy is Draymond will apologize. Jimmy does not apologize.
No.
Draymond Green knows when he steps over the line and he apologizes. And you're probably right. It has like, this is my home. This is the one team I've always known. We've learned to live with each other. This Jimmy Butler element coming in is all the way new for them potentially, right? And so, and he might walk in and be like, "Look, I've done it this way. I've had success, even though the Warriors have had way more success than Jimmy Butler has, right? Steph Curry's got 4 rings. Jimmy Butler's got 0. Draymond Green's got rings. Jimmy Butler's got 0. Steve Kerr has a lot of rings. Jimmy Butler has 0. But I think he might walk into that locker room and be like, I'm still going to do me, right? Like, that's Jimmy Butler plays by his own rules. And so I understand where Steve Kerr and Steph Curry are coming from, right? If they are a little bit worried about the locker room dynamic, that is a very tight-knit group, right? It was hard for them to watch their brother Klay Thompson walk away. And it was a reality of this new CBA and all of this stuff.
Right.
But I wonder if they would look at it and say, and this is why I would guess that they pulled out of Jimmy Butler trade talks a few weeks ago, right? And I went and checked in. I always got kind of a cold kind of, we're not really we're not really into the idea of trading for Jimmy Butler, right?
Sure.
And that I didn't know that to be either true or them just sort of trying to throw me off the scent a little bit with people that I check in over there. But I never got a no. I never got like a flat out absolutely not. And maybe that's also just a symptom of the NBA. Why would you ever say no? You never know what's going to happen. But this is why you never say no, because there is no market for Jimmy Butler. And when Steph Curry and Steve Kerr and Draymond Green are talking about how they don't want to mortgage the future, well, what if you don't have to? And you still just get to have Jimmy Butler? Then it almost becomes, then that's why I think the front office might be looking at this and bringing it to Steph and bringing it to Steve Kerr and saying, well, what if it doesn't cost us the future? What if you're not on the hook for that? What if that blood is not on your hands? What if it just costs us a few salaries of players you like, Andrew Wiggins, Gary Payton, Kevon Looney? Those guys might have to be in that trade. Certainly a few of them would be. And by the way, all three of those guys had a really nice game against Oklahoma City on Wednesday night. And I don't know if that makes them even more emboldened to go big move or say, hey, we really like these guys. They're helping us win games right now.
Yeah.
I think the on-court fit with Jimmy Butler makes sense. I understand the locker room concerns. I do.
Would it ultimately be an obstacle to trying to pursue it, or it's like, will it have to reach the point where it would have to be a no-brainer? Like, it's like, oh, we can only offer X, the bare minimum. When I know that, again, to your point earlier, they would have to give up on players that they've liked and that they've won championships with. But would they just say, okay, this is the least amount, and we're still getting a great talent in Jimmy, and we'll take that risk knowing that we can keep the championship window?
That's what's so fascinating about this. Is the ultimate test for Steph Curry, right? And I don't. There is no pass
How much
or
do you
fail
want to
on
win?
this. Right.
Yeah.
It is sort of, but it is. It's so interesting. No pass or fail. But what's the priority? Is it? And maybe I shouldn't necessarily say it even that strongly, but this idea that I don't think they do this without Steph's blessing.
Of course.
So,
of course not.
Would Steph Curry look at Andrew Wiggins, Kevon Looney, and Gary Payton II, which that would be the bare minimum, and let's say no first round picks, like let's just say the absolute bare minimum, that would be it, because you still have to match salary, and say I won championships with these guys, a championship with these guys, but it's okay. I'm going to let them go for this maybe thing that could work out, because even if you get Jimmy Butler, we don't know. Like there's concerns about how that would work out in the locker room, his fit and all these things. On the court, I think it's a dynamite addition. I think it's exactly what the Warriors need, right? They are a really good team when they have that second scorer. When Andrew Wiggins is scoring 20-plus points, that team is really good. When that team scores more than 118 points, I saw this online somewhere, I think, and I didn't check it, but it's like when they score 116 or more points or something, they're like 14-2. Like they are just missing that second scorer next to Steph. Sometimes it's Jonathan Kuminga, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's Andrew Wiggins, sometimes it's not. And that's my thing with Butler is like sometimes it's Jimmy Butler and sometimes it's not. At least when as a number one option, the Warriors would be betting us at a number two option. We can get that more often than not. But yeah, for Steph, it would be on him, I think, to sign off on it. Does he sign off on parting with these teammates for a chance and a question mark in Jimmy Butler?
Yeah, I don't know. It just seems, at least from the outside, I don't think it's realistic. I don't think winning that much. I don't think winning matters to the degree where you're willing to just risk everything that you've built over the last 12 years or whatever. It's just.
You think that's what it would be? That's strong language. Risking everything that he's built just to that would be what's at stake if they trade for Jimmy.
It would go down a very bad path. Like, I mean, there were, this. Like, I mean, there were major concessions made in order to incorporate Kevin Durant here, and KD couldn't fit in. Like, as much as that, and KD's not like he's mercurial. He's not an a-hole, and we know what Jimmy is.
And that led to 2 championships.
What's that?
Durant led to 2 championships.
I know. But still, within the context of the locker room and within the context of the team and the fan base, it was always going to be Steph's team, and that might not. I don't know. Like it's still his finger on the pulse, and he could dictate exactly how that plays out. I just don't think this is his team. Like, why would he make that concession for a guy like for Jimmy?
Because he did it for Durant.
Championship.
Because he did it for Durant, right? He did it for Durant, and if there's another team in the league that can withstand sort of the ups and downs and the roller coasters of all the sort of the soap opera stuff of the NBA, besides the Miami Heat, who do such a great job of insulating themselves from that kind of stuff, it is Golden State. And it would be a test of their culture, just like so many things have been a test of Miami's culture, right? It would be fascinating to see this Jimmy Butler guy who burned every possible bridge and kind of took Heat culture down a peg, I think, while he was here, to then go into the other great culture in the NBA, the Golden State Warriors, and just see what happens there. I mean, it would be a science experiment in a lot of ways. It would be fascinating. We're going to keep talking about this. Bleacher Report came up with a trade idea that sends Jimmy to Phoenix, brings De'Aaron Fox to Miami. But here's the thing that they're missing a key piece to make this thing work. We're going to talk about that next here on Locked On Heat.
This is a message from Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back, and then waiting and wondering and worrying some more. Now Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return, while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find you every day, every deduction possible, and file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy. All you get to do is get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now this is Taxes. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live Full Service, real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. We'll be right back.
Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Your favorite NBA team is a free daily newsletter. Introducing the Locked On Heat newsletter, one stop for ultimate Heat and league coverage with local analysis and amazing writing from Katie Heindel, Mike Shear, and Locked On Fantasy Basketball tips from Josh Lloyd. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. Before we get to Bleacher Report's big old fake trade that made the rounds on social media on Thursday, Sam Amick from The Athletic reporting just before we started recording here, David, that the Kings are not interested in trading De'Aaron Fox for Jimmy Butler. Can't say that I'm surprised by this. What about you?
No, you kind of hope that the Kings are going to Kangs all over the place, but no, unfortunately, it just didn't work out that way.
Didn't make it easy for us.
Yeah, even a broken clock is right twice a day, right? So I think this is basically it. I have to knock on the Kings organization or anything like that, but they've made some head scratching details, and so yeah, go right ahead. No, it's they've made some mistakes in the past. I think they'd be the first to admit that, and it's good on them for at least being able to say, no, we don't want to give up a young up-and-coming all-star for a possibly disgruntled veteran player who might be better at this point, but is also going to be making a heck of a lot of money. And we don't know what that combination alongside DeMar DeRozan and Domantas Sabonis is going to be like. So it's probably not worth it. I'm not surprised. Are you?
No, and now people can stop sending us fake trades about Jimmy Butler going to Sacramento for De'Aaron Fox, because I never thought they were going to do that anyway. Also, I saw it reported somewhere else. I'm sorry, I can't remember who did it, but Jimmy Butler, in addition to telling the Memphis Grizzlies, hey, don't trade for me, I guess also informed the Sacramento Kings, hey, don't trade for me. So maybe that was also part of it, but also maybe Sacramento was like, don't worry, we weren't going to. So who knows? Not
fired, I quit. Yeah.
Right. Let's get to this Bleacher Report idea, because even if the Heat cannot trade Jimmy Butler for De'Aaron Fox straight up, maybe they could trade Jimmy Butler somewhere else to a different team, take those assets, move those assets in a combination with their own, send that stuff to Sacramento, and then perhaps get De'Aaron Fox that way. So we've heard De'Aaron Fox, his preferred location is San Antonio. Still have not heard whether or not the Spurs are in on the idea of trading for De'Aaron Fox, or if they are, what they'd be willing to offer. They can potentially beat any offer on the table that Miami could put together. We don't know if they would want to beat any of those offers, right? I have no idea which way they're going to go on this. So given that, you saw Vince Goodwill from Yahoo report that the other teams that De'Aaron Fox has expressed an openness to be traded to are the Houston Rockets and the Miami Heat. So that's good news. Can the Heat figure out a way to get De'Aaron Fox? So Bleacher Report came up with this idea. The Heat get De'Aaron Fox, Kevin Huerter, and a second-round pick. The Suns get Jimmy Butler. The Kings get Bradley Beal, Jaime Jaquez Jr., a pair of first-round picks from Phoenix in 2027 and 2029, and then a 2029 first from Miami. You want to grade the trade? Like, what kind of what would you give this?
Fox Herder and a second round pick, and it cost Jimmy Jaime
In a
and a
first.
first round pick.
Isn't that a
I
slam
think that's a
dunk for
pretty good
Miami?
deal. I think that's a pretty good deal. I'd say maybe a B plus,
So
maybe an A minus.
yeah, to me that if this were to go through, this would be an A plus to me, like an A minus, I guess, for whatever. It would be an A for Miami. I mean, you're already losing Jimmy Butler, so this is essentially
Yeah,
costing
that's
you,
fair. Yeah,
Jaime, who you
Jaime and a
love,
first.
but Jaime and a first for De'Aaron Fox, a guy who was in the running for an All NBA spot a couple of years ago. Yeah, no
Yeah,
question. So,
sorry. Yeah.
um,
I feel like
but
something. I feel like there's another shoe that's about to drop now.
well, here it
So
is.
ah,
The Kings would never take Bradley Beal. Why do we keep doing this? This is the part that I teased that was missing. Like, why would the Kings do this? Why would they? I think they would love Jaime Jaquez. Just a guess. No reporting on that. Just like, why wouldn't they?
sure.
California guy, makes a lot of sense for them. You get 3 first round picks. Great. Like, we got the ball rolling. What else you got? Oh, you got to take Bradley Beal.
His
What?
contract.
And his contract and a no trade clause. And the other part about this too is Bradley Beal said he wants 2 things. He wants to play for a contender or in a warm weather city. Sacramento's moderate. It gets kind of cold. I don't think it snows in Sacramento. I don't recall it snowing up there, but it's not. I wouldn't also consider it a warm weather city, so that's out. And they're far from being a contender, right? Like they're what 12th in the whatever they are right now in the West, 10th in the West right now.
Yeah.
They're not a contender. So Beal's not, and nobody wants to go to Sacramento. No offense to Sacramento, but like star players don't choose to go to Sacramento, nor does Bradley Beal. Players with no trade clauses. So there's no way this happens. So I don't even know what the point of it is.
Yeah, it's a tough swallow. It's tough to kind of look at this and say, oh, there's any kind of shred of realism to it. So it feels like now, and maybe it's just the context of the show, but I feel like I keep flip flopping, and I don't mean to drag you into this, but as the days go on and we're hearing more and more reporting or more leaks out of this, it's just I don't know that a deal gets done. Like I'm not going to go so far as to say that Jimmy is damaged goods, but he ain't
Isn't he?
fresh. He's not hot off the press either. He's not right there and the kind of premium player that you're willing to go all in for. So I don't know. It's just every day it seems like a team that might be involved. There's one hang up there, and I'm not sure how Miami bounces back from this without having to find some kind of deal for him. But it just
Well, how
feels
much
like
of
more
this
and
is
more
leverage, right? Like in the days leading up to the deadline, how much of this is the Warriors just being like, I don't know. I mean, if it doesn't cost us anything, I guess we would do it, right? Like how much of this is just leveraging is the important part, right? And I'll tell you that, like, just because the Kings aren't going to, I agree with you to the point of the closer we get to the deadline, the least likely it feels like Jimmy's going to get his way and end up in Phoenix because I don't see who takes Bradley Beal. But the other, like Golden State keeps coming up and has kept coming up every time you check in and talk to people who know stuff. Golden State, Memphis, Milwaukee. Those teams have not gone away. And Phoenix, by the way, is still the team that's extremely motivated. They are still working the phones, pitching these 3 first-round picks and Bradley Beal and all this stuff. Like they are trying. And I don't know if teams are getting annoyed. Like there's only 29 other teams and there's only 28 teams that they could be calling about. Like they've probably called all of them by now, right? So I don't know what happened.
Sorry. Tyler Herro, All-Star.
That's
Tyler
great.
Herro, All-Star.
All right. That's incredible.
Awesome.
Let's go to we're gonna talk about that. We got some fan questions. We'll do all of that after this here on Locked On Heat.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here. 1 game, 2 teams, endless possibilities. And there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what's happening on the field, and the app is really easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that's just icing on the cake. So download the app or head to FanDuel.com and get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, the official partner of Super Bowl 59. We'll be right back.
Tyler Herro, NBA All-Star. Big congrats to him. Big time congrats. Before we get to this, let's just finish up with some listener questions that we didn't get a chance to get to in the post-game show last night. Flavio writes in, the next 4 games for the Heat should be easy ones. What are your guys' prediction on this stretch, the next 4 games? In San Antonio on Saturday, Chicago, at Philadelphia, at Brooklyn. The Heat are probably going to be favored in all 4 of those games. If they're not, it might be the one in Philadelphia, depending on if Joel Embiid and Paul George are available. And it's also the second night of a back-to-back on the road for Miami. But I would admit they're probably going to be favored in all 4 of these games.
You think so? I don't know that they're favored in San Antonio.
You know what? You might be right. Yeah, you might be right.
And I don't know that they'd be favored in Philadelphia. I mean, they've won a few games in a row. They're thinking they're a playing team. And Maxi's playing great. To be honest with you, if Paul George and Embiid come back, that would probably help Miami's chances because they're going to be out of shape. They're not going to have their conditioning up to play.
Sure,
Especially Embiid. Yeah. Like it would probably help Miami. Although I'd be curious as hell to see what Khalil Ware can do against Joel Embiid. Probably not a great matchup, but it's not like Embiid's an overtly physical player either. But it's going to be an interesting matchup. So I don't know. Those 4 games, a good test. But this team, we already know the answers before the test is even given out. It's 2-2. They're going to win 1 game that they're supposed to lose and lose 1 game they're supposed to win.
Yeah. Yep. San Antonio, I know that the Heat beat them last time. They're going to be looking for revenge. That's a good team. And that's a Victor Wembanyama who takes everything as a perceived slight. And to your point, they're a good basketball team. And now we're playing on their turf. So we'll see. But you got to win the game in Chicago. You got to win the game in Brooklyn. They'll probably drop one of those, beat one of San Antonio and Philadelphia. And like you said, go 2-2. But after that, Boston at home on February 10th. Then it's Oklahoma City, Dallas, a plucky Toronto team, Milwaukee, 2 games against Atlanta, and then Indiana. So that is a really tough stretch to close out February, right after the trade deadline here. So, and whether or not Jimmy Butler is going to be a part of this, and if the Heat get something back for him, we'll see. But things can go south pretty quickly if they don't take care of business on this road trip coming up here. Like, this is an important stretch that they got coming up on the court, despite all the concerns that we've been talking about off the court. Adam writes in, how can this team get back to respectability? Cleveland was without their 2 starters, and they dominated us. Cleveland's a really good team, man. I don't know that we could drop respectability after losing to that team, even without 2 starters.
Sorry, what was the question again? Did I mishear it?
How can this team get back to respectability after losing to Cleveland, who was without 2 starters, and they dominated us?
That was a loss from the get-go. Like I know that Miami fans are kind of saying, "Well, we beat them already." It's like, yeah, that was more of the fluke than the norm moving forward. Like, and if you play this team 100 times, there's a good chance they're going to win at least 80 of those matchups. So Miami got lucky that first time, despite missing Garland and Dean Wade. It's Dean Wade. They had Max Strus starting. He's pretty good, as Miami fans might remember also. So I don't think respectability was lost. They lost against a very good team, and we saw the difference. That's a very good team with a superstar who was, as he said after the game, engaged. He wanted payback. He wanted to send a message. He's like, okay, you punked us once. You're not going to punk us again. And he made sure of that. And he was incredible, and he was dominant throughout the game. And even when he's not performing at such a high level, they still have a pretty good cast surrounding him. Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, those are 2 guys that are, Allen's been an all-star. Mobley is an all-star. I think he was selected this year as well. So, I mean, no, he was not. He missed out. Oh, no, he was. He's an all-star. So you're looking at
so let's talk about that. All right. So because all right, one last question. I want to try to get to as many of these, but like Miguel writes in, what are the chances the Heat get De'Aaron Fox? Just give me a number.
Chances they get to De'Aaron Fox, 20% just because of the connection with Bam.
I like it. Bam Adebayo, not just De'Aaron Fox's college teammate, his roommate in college, and was a groomsman in De'Aaron Fox's wedding. Bam Adebayo, get on the phone. Or not. I don't know. I don't know how any of this stuff works, but let's hope that this works. So Eastern Conference reserves. This is fascinating, David. Jaylen Brown, Pascal Siakam, Darius Garland, Cade Cunningham, Evan Mobley, Damian Lillard, and Tyler Herro. So you've got Lillard, Garland as two of the guards, Cade and Tyler as other guards. So all the wild card spots went to guards, which was what I thought was going to happen. Then you got Brown, Siakam, and Mobley taking the 3 front court reserve spots. So no Franz Wagner. That's tough for Orlando, but the games played thing ultimately got in the way there. Jalen Johnson, ditto for him in Atlanta. That's a tough break for them.
Young.
But that's the thing. That's the exciting thing here. This is what I'm stoked. Like there is still good in the world, David. No LaMelo Ball and no Trae Young. Tyler Herro got in over them. That was what the coaches decided.
Over Tyrese Halliburton. Like
over Halliburton,
maybe.
Over Maxey, but really over LaMelo Ball, who's averaging 30-plus points per game. Charlotte fans are going to be pissed. Over Trae Young, who's leading the league in assists right now, playing for a good Hawks team, who's kind of feels like he did a little bit of a Tyler Herro thing, kind of turning the corner with the way that he plays, but his shooting percentages are low. And I always wondered, if the coaches are in charge of the reserves, I don't know how many coaches were totally thrilled with Trae Young, given the way that Trae Young had reportedly treated some of the coaches in Atlanta over the years before Quinn Snyder got there. And I don't know how many of them were frankly in on Tyler Herro, given Tyler Herro's inefficient offensive style over the last couple of years. But they have seen Tyler Herro make a dramatic change to the way he's played. And everybody's sort of agreed that he's turned a new leaf here, and they've rewarded it with him here with the ultimate sign of respect. We've talked about it. Coaches, when they play Miami, they have their best guy guarding Tyler Herro. They are showing respect with their scheme. Were they going to show the respect with their vote? And they 100% did. I, for one, am gleefully surprised that Tyler got in over LaMelo and Trae Young. This is a huge deal to me.
It absolutely is. It really is. I what an up and down career arc for this kid. Like he's still young and he's still, what is 6th season now in the NBA. And it just seems like every year is this kind of manic up and down nature. His first rookie season, exciting. The future. He's an all-star in the making. I remember saying that. I've said it many, many times, like talking to his trainer, and he ultimately believed at the time he was going to be a multi-time all-star. Where that means twice, because that's 2 times, that's multi, or 4 times, he wasn't quite sure. But it just the idea that Herro was going to be an all-star level player, and I believed it, and a lot of people believed it. And then the next year, it's like, oh, well, he's kind of struggling. Maybe he's kind of struggling because they just came off the Orlando bubble in the longest season in NBA history, and he didn't have a full summer to prepare, and he was still kind of dealing with COVID, daily testing at 3 a.m, insane changes to a regular NBA schedule, and it wasn't quite so easy. The next summer, we're hearing reports from some local media outlets that he was on the way out, 75% likely to get traded from the Miami Heat. Of course, he's not. Then the following summer, he kind of bounces back and he says he wins the 6th man of the year. It's just been up and down. And every summer, he just finds a way to keep going despite all the criticism, despite the constant links to being traded. Look, I've been guilty of it. And for a good reason. I think it's fair to say that Herro was probably Miami's best asset and that you could look at him and say, I was never quite sure of what his ceiling might be. I don't think he's going to be a superstar. I don't think he's going to be a Hall of Fame level player, but that's not necessarily a knock on somebody. That's a limited amount of players that could reach that kind of status at the NBA level. And if he never reaches that, that doesn't change the fact he's still a damn good player and still capable. But if you're looking for a way to improve this roster, moving Tyler a couple years ago, maybe even as recently as last summer, was probably the best avenue to do so. Having said that, and the fact that he sustained and dealt with all this, and we talked about this in a recent episode where he talked about how much it means to him to bring a championship to Miami, how he's been a longtime fan of the Miami Heat growing up near Milwaukee, and for him to be able to be achieving all-star level status while still here, having gone through all this gamut of everything, that is amazing. What a hell of a story. Yeah. I'm so proud for him and so glad for his achievement.
And it was the 1 year where he stopped talking about it too.
Yes.
It was the one year where he's
Yes.
like, even last night in the locker room, he got 3 or 4 questions about, All-Star reserves are going to be announced tomorrow night, Thursday night. What do you think about that? What would it mean to you if you got any? He was as polite as he could in dismissing the questions. He was like, you know what, it would be an honor, but it's not something I'm thinking about right now. Essentially, is what he was talking about. And you know what? After years of wanting to be that and not getting it, and all the things that you just talked about that he went through, I kind of believe him. Like, of course, he's thinking about it a little bit, but I kind of believed him in that. And you know what? It's funny how the world works, right? You kind of just put that away and you just focus on the work, and the next thing you know, you get the things that you wanted, and the things that, frankly, that he deserves. I think this is very deserved. And Atlanta fans and Charlotte fans can complain about Trae Young and LaMelo not getting in, and that's fine.
They've already
And maybe
made it.
they've made it. And you know what? I still think Tyler Herro is more deserving, right? And
Oh, yeah.
I'm glad that he got on. We'll have a chance to talk about what this means for Tyler Herro in his career. Look forward to what it could look like. Tyler Herro on the court with other All-Stars, and of course we'll get his reactions to it tomorrow. But for now, thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on your favorite podcast app.